Hey, welcome to Ed, a podcast about the teaching life. This is Conversation 90, and I'm your host, Shane Lawrence. Ed is a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network powered by ATB. And joining me this week is Sean Robinson.
Good morning to you.
How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I mean, it is an amazing experience. I knew that planning this connection here, this podcast right now would be awesome because you'd get a piece of me that you may, never get again. And that is me being here in Dubai at for the Global Teacher Prize.
Oh, is that what this is?
Global Education Skills Forum. Yeah.
Tell me more about that. You're here for the Global Education Prize. So what does that mean?
So that means that I am one of the top 50 finalists for a global prize.
Okay.
That is put on by the Varkey Foundation. And I'm not in the running anymore. They've narrowed it down to a top 10.
Okay.
They actually narrowed it down months ago.
Oh, okay.
And so I don't have that, hey, it might be me kind of feeling, but being here, so they still invite all the top 50 and
right, okay.
They include us in the events. And so it's just amazing.
Well, that's kind of a bit of a load off, right? Because then you just get to go and enjoy it and you don't have to sit there and worry about your acceptance speech.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, there's other things that I worry about as far as making sure I leverage this opportunity. Mm-hmm. But as far as having to go up in front of thousands of people and, say thank you, I don't got to do that.
Sweet. So, hey, okay. So you're in Dubai. You're not obviously from Dubai. Where are you from originally?
Just from Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada.
Oh, you're a fellow Canuck. Oh, right on.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I'm in Edmonton, Alberta. So.
Yeah. Well, right I knew that. I knew that you're out in Edmonton.
Okay.
And I knew that connecting would be an important thing because we're fellow Canadians.
Yeah. I don't have a lot of Canadians on this show. I'm not going to lie. It's a lot of Americans. So good to meet up with you. So what is a Vancouverite? What do you have to do in order to get into that top 50 of global educators?
Yeah. Well, what was going on was I was being part of this global community doing larger projects, things outside of my classroom. And I would always hear about these educators, Global Teacher Prize, top 50 finalists, 2015, Marika Hatchimer. And she actually, on my book, she did a quotation. Okay. I was working with Catherine Nakabugo, who was a Global Teacher Prize, top 50, 2018. I would work with Cone Timmers, who was 2017 and then top 10 2018. And so I knew about this idea of a global teacher prize. Yeah. And so I thought it would be fantastic to say, hey, you throw my hat in the ring and see if that's something that, let them know what I'm up to and see if that's something that jives with them. And so it worked out that what I was doing seemed to jive with what they were looking for. And so for 2019, I became one of the top 50 finalists for this Global Teacher Prize.
Wow. Well, congratulations on that.
Well, thank you.
And who's running this? Is it like a UN thing or what is it?
Well, no, though we did actually meet with the past UN director just last night. But no, it's not UN. It's done by the Varkey Foundation. Okay. And Sunny Varkey, who is really an educator, principal turned entrepreneur, from one school to hundreds of schools. So Sunny Varkey wanted to elevate the teaching profession. And he thought, well, how can I do this? So if it's possible, could I make a Nobel Prize for the top teacher, and that would elevate the profession. That would cause people to say, no, teachers are important. Teachers matter. In fact, the hashtag for the Global Teacher Prize, one of them is Teachers Matter. And so what had happened after that is he brought in the 50, went down to 10. They got the winner, but also I believe what he was thinking was, how do we steward, we gathered these great educators together. How do we steward that? How do we move forward? And
Right.
so we also started this Global Education Skills Forum and the Varkey Teachers Ambassadors. So every top 50 finalist becomes an ambassador.
Okay.
You're moved into ambassadorship.
Right.
And so now that this has been going 5 years, there's 250 ambassadors.
Okay.
And so what the idea is to, now that you've got a bit of elevated status, maybe a few people, know what you're doing,
Mm.
what are you going to do about it?
Right.
So,
Okay.
so my hope is that, this is a starting off point, a launching off point, that I can be more involved in activism, just
Hmm.
regarding elevating, the importance of a teacher, but also looking into things that I'm really passionate about. And we'll get into that, talking about that,
Yeah.
things like, I'm here talking a little bit about, digital literacy and mental illness.
Oh.
I'm also, I have a book that I wrote called Connections-Based Learning. And so
Mhm.
I'm really passionate in students making a connection in the classroom and
Right.
what that can look like. And so, using this, the connections that we have here and this platform to
Mhm.
really further education. And let's do something in Canada too, something special.
Right. Right. So just kind of taking the celebrity that has been bestowed upon you now and using it for good, essentially.
Yeah, yeah. However that looks,
Yeah.
whatever celebrity-esque that this is, yeah, taking
Well,
it and moving forward with it, definitely.
well, absolutely. I mean, I always used to joke, I told, friends and family when I was going to university, I was like, I'm going to be a world famous English teacher. Um, you know, Firmly tongue in cheek, but I mean, here, look at you. And now you're, world famous teacher, Sean Robinson. So there you go. You've done it.
Well, and it opens the door to possibilities. I know that we have a few fellows from Ontario,
Mm-hmm.
a few fellows from um, New Brunswick. Of course, we have Maggie McDonald, who I should mention was
Mm-hmm.
the 2017 winner.
Ah,
And yeah, so we have a winner from Canada, and she works up north
okay.
in a small community, and has a great story. But there's a couple of us from British Columbia now,
Mm-hmm.
but nobody from Alberta. Just something to think about, Shane.
Well, yeah. Okay. Clearly my fault. I'm sorry about that. I'll get on that for next year.
Yeah, hey,
It's
yeah, there's
you
a
know it's
process.
it's weird, you're looking sort of. I mean, I live my life on Twitter. That's kind of where I sort of interact with a lot of things, and it's like Ontario is this hotbed. I mean, Ontario is the big hotbed for like sort of
You
online
got it. It's
presence.
the heartland.
Oh,
Yeah.
it is, and there's a little bit in BC, like Saskatchewan and Manitoba. I don't think there are any teachers there. Like I just don't. There's just nobody there. Alberta, there's like five of us maybe. So
Yeah.
it's. I mean, I'm speaking obviously in ratios here, but it
Yeah.
is it
No.
is kind
No.
of a curiosity,
You're
isn't
right.
it? So, but let's get back to you, obviously, because you're the star of the show. Uh, so, um, man, you said something that just like I don't know. Every now and then, just like if I'm a dog, my ears just kind of like just poink. I'm like, wait, what?
Sure.
Because you said digital literacy and mental illness. I mean, are those
Yeah.
connected, or is that an and thing, or what is
Okay.
that?
No, there's a connection there, and it's something that really was brought out during this time in preparation for this because, my story connects with a story of Amanda Todd, and
Okay.
her suicide was widely reported in the media. And she had been a student of mine years previous,
Hmm.
but whenever you think about that, because the her taking her life was a matter of, really not really recognizing the bullying going on, or at least that there was bullying
Hmm.
going on. That you always think, well, what could I have done? Could I have set it up? Because it really online safety was a huge factor in this, and
Hmm.
so you think those years previous, could I have set up a digital understanding that maybe could have avoided all of that? Just
Yeah.
in self reflection. And so I came here with some of her Purple Hearts. Oh
Okay.
wait, I'm showing this to you, but this is audio, so you can't see this.
Sorry. Yeah.
But yeah, so what it is the Peyton Hart Project,
Mhm.
and the quote is, "The world needs more love." Actually, there's a bunch of different quotes. The world
Mhm.
needs you, and Carol Todd, who has been very involved in activism regarding anti-bullying,
Mhm.
just advocacy for mental illness. She has given me some hearts to place all around Dubai. And
Oh,
it's a little bit of a project where the person who finds the heart is able to do some Instagram, Facebook, make that connection.
right.
And it just Amanda would have loved to travel the world. And so
Mhm.
Amanda, with me, was able to go to the top of the Burj Khalifa, the highest building in the world, in
Yeah.
Dubai, and I was just able to have a moment, just kind of considering, what her story, what she means to me. So that's what I'm talking about, and I connect it with my work with digital literacy,
Mhm.
because now I go into all I connect with every student in my school at the very beginning. So every new student who comes in, all the grade nines in my high school,
Yeah.
and we talk about our digital footprint. We Google ourselves. We take a look at what a person would see online. We talk about how the stuff that you do online is like squeezing out toothpaste from a tube, and it's not going
It's not
back
going back
in.
in.
It's
Yeah.
out there forever. And really, we help to set up our students to not just all the don'ts, to kind of follow a list of do's and a list of don'ts, but what are the do's? What are the possibilities? I mean, Shane, you're a great example of the possibility of online, connection, and
Yeah.
using it for good. And so, really, to teach the students that. So it's grown from our one school. Now we have digital literacy classes in all the schools in the Coquitlam school district.
Mhm.
So that's a couple thousand students who, right at the get-go, are looking at their digital footprint and getting some education in digital literacy.
And the word that keeps popping up, right, is connection, right? Connecting these different things together. I mean, you've clearly got a pretty strong passion just for, I think even, it seems to me like just the actual act of connecting ideas or concepts.
Yep.
I mean, how does that figure into, your day to day then? This week's episode of Ed is brought to you by Park Power. They're a provider of electricity and natural gas in Alberta that offers low rates, awesome service, and profit sharing with local charities. In Alberta, you get to choose who you buy your energy from, and if you choose Park Power, your money stays here. Plus, Park Power shares its profits with the local not-for-profits that are working to make a difference for their communities. Shopping local is very important to Park Power's owner, Chris Kozowski, and we love local here at the Alberta Podcast Network, so it's a great fit. You can learn more at parkpower.ca. All right, let's get back to my conversation with Sean. I mean, how does that figure into, your day to day then? Because you wrote a book about it.
Yeah, definitely. And so it's really a human connection
Mhm.
that I focus on. And so in the classroom, I try to change the question from what to who, as opposed to what am I teaching today, or even how am I going to deliver the content or the competencies. I look at a who.
Mhm.
So who can we connect with to help us learn certain concepts? And so
Right.
we talk about 4 different kinds of connections: connecting with the community,
Mhm.
with experts, with organizations, and classrooms around the world.
Okay.
And so I was a big proponent of project-based learning in the past. I loved the idea of the real world connections. I didn't love the fact that project-based learning, just the phrase, the wording, didn't have genuine in there or
Right.
real world in there. Though whenever you talk with somebody who is passionate about PBL, they would say, no, but look, I know it says project and it's only, it
Mhm.
only says project, but really we're talking about making a connection with the real world
Right.
and doing something genuine. Well, I thought if I was going to work on an approach, first of all, is it possible to have an approach to teaching where it's based on human connection. And second of all, if I did, that the name would just kind of work. And so I can say to you honestly that I can base my teaching on human connection, whether it's the teacher-student connection,
Mhm.
whether it's connection with the organizations, the expert,
Yeah.
doing some connections, learning from content experts, or even making that connection around the world. And so I talk about a connection lens because I believe that this idea of connections-based learning can definitely be done and should be done, but it's a lens. So it's a matter of taking a look at your learning outcomes and thinking, okay, well, with whom could I connect? Is there a connection there that's possible?
Yeah.
Could we connect with the stem cell researcher instead of just learning from a textbook?
Right.
Can we make a connection with a planetary scientist? Can we make a connection with a class in Uganda or in the Dominican Republic? And I have stories about, connections there.
Mhm.
And, so we talk about in connections-based learning, connect, then collaborate,
Mhm.
and cultivate. So the connection isn't just a connection that like a one-off. The
Right.
hope is that you make that connection and then you collaborate. Then you start working together. So it moves beyond like a field trip or a one-time visit. But
Right.
it's really saying to that person who visits, okay, how can we partner with you? How can we work
Mhm.
together?
Yeah.
And so we connect, we collaborate, and then we cultivate. So we work for positive change.
Mhm. Wow.
And
So,
so, yeah, go ahead.
well, so what does that, look like? I mean, those are great words, and I can sort of envision in my mind some sort of very idealized circumstance where that makes sense. But I mean, I also know that we teach in the real world where, it's a little
You
more
got it.
challenging than that. So what does that look like
Yeah.
in the real world?
Okay, so in the real world, here's an example. So we made a connection with the Dominican Republic with my class.
Okay.
And so we were connecting with another classroom, and the classroom shared with us their trip to the Batays. So this is the sugarcane communities outside of where their class was. So we were Skyping at the time, and
Yeah.
this particular class had access to some technology,
Yeah.
but they were talking about the surrounding areas, whether it's an hour or an hour and a half outside, where there's a lack of electricity.
Okay.
And it really made, I was talking with him saying, well, yeah, I guess they're using kerosene lamps and it can be carcinogenic. And the fella said back to me, actually, they're not worried about the carcinogenic aspects of kerosene lamps. They're worried about the fires that are happening
Right.
because, these open flames inside, either like a cardboard house or a tent or something like that.
Yeah.
And so people are dying. So my students got this idea got this information. And then what I do in this circumstance is I would turn to my students and I would say, now that we know what we know,
Mhm.
what are we going to do about it?
Right.
And so the idea of creating some solar powered lanterns
Right.
came. Now we need to connect further because this is well beyond me. Okay.
Right.
In an electronics class, I was okay, but that was back in grade 9.
Yeah,
when
yeah.
I built my previous electronics project, and so then we connected with Ian Fogarty
Mhm.
and a class in New Brunswick, and we heard
Oh.
about Ian and his engineering brightness work and
Mhm.
how he was creating these 3D printed lanterns, solar powered lanterns, and how he was, sharing them around the world. So we partnered with him. We learned from him. We created our own lanterns. We were
Uh-huh.
able to actually get the lanterns to the Dominican Republic, do some training there
Mhm.
as well, so that they would be able to make their own lanterns. And my students were all a part of this process, but not just my students, but students in other classes, because I had to connect with the industrial design teacher to help me with the
Oh.
soldering aspect. And then to do the fundraising, some of my students connected with, a sister at the middle school. And so there
Right.
was bake sales in schools that I did not teach at, money from kids that I was unfamiliar with. And so in the end, we had a big celebration with the Tri-City News there, just looking at, wow, what a great thing that has happened here, including a Skype back into the Dominican Republic. What a great thing has happened here,
Uh-huh.
stemming from this connection and really the opening the door to the students to
Yeah.
make positive change. And I should add to that,
Yeah.
well, Robinson, okay, well, what about, but we got curriculum here.
Yeah.
Sounds great. But I've got Ohm's law to teach. How am I supposed to do that? Well, see, the great thing about it, I threw in Ohm's law because that's exactly what the students were learning. I remember standing in front of them saying, okay, well, we got to figure out what kind of resistors we're going to be putting into these lanterns.
Right.
And, wouldn't it be great if there was like a formula? Yeah, Mr. Robinson, wouldn't it be great if there's a way that we could figure out what kind of resistance we need, to provide the voltage, right? So that we have the proper current going through. And I said, there is. And I put, Ohm's law up on the board, V equals IR. And then I said, okay, now this is really important. You're gonna have to get good at this and figure this out, because we want our resistors to be the right resistors. If they're too high, then the lights aren't going to be bright enough. If the resistance is too low, then they're going to burn out. So, have at it.
You got to do it right.
And so it really it brings it right back to understanding current, voltage, resistance, circuits,
right,
that kind of thing. So it really makes relevant what they're learning in the school. So that's an example.
Right, and then there's another connection where you're connecting curriculum to purpose. Right. I mean,
that's right.
You're never going to have a kid so motivated to learn Ohm's law as they are when it's like, well, if you don't, you're going to burn somebody's house down or at least horribly disappoint them. Right. So it's,
I know. Yeah. And so, really and cool. Kyle, I remember Kyle coming up to me and saying, Mr. Robinson, I'm not good at English. I'm not really good at math. Not really good at a lot of stuff here at school, but I'm good at making these lights. And that really spoke to me how, we're giving these students some great experiences here. Now, I have other, connections that we made that don't look exactly like that, because you may need to connect with an expert. So we, talk about stem cell research, right? And so when I'm teaching stem cell research, stem cells and cell biology, right? Part of the grade 9 curriculum to my students, why not Skype in a stem cell researcher, right? So it looks a bit different. I can say to my students, hey, how do we partner with her? And what it usually looks like is putting on our blog some ideas, brainstorming some ideas for, what could stem cells do for what's ever meaningful for me, and maybe my grandfather has Parkinson's disease, and we'd love to see how, stem cells can help in that case. And so, doing some research. So it looks different in different circumstances, but it always goes back to that who can we engage as we're going through it?
Absolutely. And I mean, to echo your point about, experts, like one thing I have learned from connecting with experts in my own classes is that, people want to share. People love to share what they know, so, the case in point, here's you sharing with me, right? So, but even as, like last week, I asked my film studies kids, and this is the drum I always like to bang on. So people are probably sick of it, but whatever. It's my show. I can do what I want.
Give her.
I asked
that
them,
drum.
Well, I was like, this is my high school film studies class. I'm like, what do you want to know about? What are the weak spots for you? And one of the kids is like, well, I need to know about lighting. And this is on a Thursday. And we meet every second day. So next class is Monday. So, but by the end of that class on Thursday, I was like, okay, I've got a director of photography coming in on Monday. And he came in and taught for like an hour and a half. So, because people they want to share. And it's one of the easiest big wins you can have in a class.
I've never paid for a connection. I've never, there's never been any money. As you're saying, people just love to connect, to share. especially I tell my students, okay, so if you need to get, some solar panels, you just let them know, hey, I'm a student.
Yeah.
And you'll just that just starts the ball rolling. They're like, oh, for sure, we'll throw you a bone. We're gonna send off a couple of solar panels and that kind of thing. So definitely making those connections. And so why I call it, like, I just want to elevate that idea, and that more and more people are doing it, making accessible for every teacher.
Yeah,
that they would be able to say, hey, with this lens of connection, I can see how I can, have, in my film studies class, I can, make a connection with somebody who's going to even teach a concept even much better than me. So it also, as an educator, it brings you back to saying, hey, humbly, I'm not an expert at everything. Yeah. And, but I can help you find some experts.
Yeah. Well,
so
secretly,
that's part of it.
Oh yeah. Secretly, I know for myself, I love when experts come in because I get to learn a little bit too. Right. So
exactly.
But, so you talk to, there's connections all over the place here. We can talk about, A to B and A to C and Z to X and all the rest of it. But let's talk about student to student, because you're talking about connecting classes together. What are the big benefits for your kids when they are connecting to other classes all over the place?
Yeah, well, I mean, at first when you were talking about student to student, I thought you were talking about, or we could talk about just within. And so I mean, I
Oh,
start
okay. We
every
could go there too. Yeah.
new class in a circle, nobody in the front, nobody in the back.
Uh-huh.
And the most important thing is that we can get to know each other really well and trust each other. So I
Mm-hmm.
try to set a tone of, you're going to be partnering with these people. You're going to need to get to know them. You're going to need to, there's got to be acceptance, and not just acceptance, but there's got to be celebration, right?
Mm-hmm.
Of every student. If I can become the teacher that celebrates every student, and I've got work to do,
Yeah.
but just to celebrate, each one who's there,
Mm-hmm.
then that's fantastic. So, and then allow my students to get, to feel that atmosphere of, we're just kind of delighting in each one of us here, and we all got quirks and stuff like that,
Oh,
and
yeah.
so then so when we start off working on something, then I like the students to, in a collaborative document, talk about what do they bring to this project.
Right.
So what are your skills that you can add to what we're doing? Whether it's the lanterns or whether it's fundraising or creating a video,
Yeah.
or whatever it is. And so we just go through a bit of a process to have the students look at, so when you're doing group work, the worst is getting to the very end and there's fighting and nobody's happy about what has been done, and Billy did nothing, he did nothing. So to really, my hope is to, way before that happens, just at the start,
Yeah.
to talk about what are our non-negotiables here, what are our goals, do we want to do really well here, do our goals equal, like, is it equal work,
Mm-hmm.
deadlines. So I'll try to go through that, but also, like I said, part of that process is what do you bring, and what are you going to be in charge of. And then to go on to making those connections, those global connections.
Mm-hmm.
So we connected with Uganda, and so connected a couple of times with Catherine Nakabugo, who I mentioned before. She's
Yeah.
a top 50 finalist 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And she mentioned solar powered computers, and I could talk about that. But what was neat about this connection is that our students put their ideas of how to address the needs in Uganda on their digital portfolios. These are public portfolios.
Mm-hmm.
And then to have students from Uganda comment on those portfolios, that there would be this learning dialogue on their blogs to help students refine what they're going to be working on. So it's not just a, hey, I'm going to build this solar powered computer for you, but it's,
Yeah.
what do you need there? What, how,
Yeah.
like, is there going to be enough sunlight? Well, yeah, there was enough sunlight, but just having
Yeah.
those kinds of questions and dialogue, so that students are learning, but they're also building connection, they're building relationships.
Now, this sounds like a pretty wide kind of swath you're cutting with all these kind of connections. I mean, are you able to pull in like other subject areas as well, other different teachers as you're working through these kind of projects?
Yeah, so I have great conversations with the math department, and just how she can connect, make connections as in math, right? You think,
Yeah.
okay, well, how's that going to work in math? But as they're doing their inquiries, and they, so they're working on ungoogleable types of questions, and students are thinking about, like stuff, engineering, might come into play, some kind of need for some mathematical concepts that somebody might be already working on, some kind of expert, maybe an academic or something, making a connection with an expert in a certain string theory or something like that, right?
Wow. Yeah, okay.
Which is what beyond the classroom teacher, and yet it we can't put these limits on things, because we can tap into these experts and maybe they can share it in a more basic way. And so whether it's that or humanities, I think there's so many possibilities there, as far as just developing an understanding, developing tolerance.
Yeah.
So making those connections, with, I mean, one of the easy ones is, looking at our local government, but you can
Mhm.
also think about, okay, what about the First Nations band that is part of our community? Are we making connections there?
Mhm.
Um, think about residential schools, and maybe that's part of the sharing that you do in your class. And then so do you have a residential school survivor that comes in to share
Mhm.
really what it was like to be a part of that,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and to live through that, right?
Right.
So my belief, and I know it's tough. It's not easy to to say, okay, well, how am I going to connect in this
Mhm.
situation? But I think it's powerful. And so even as an educator going through that process, saying, who can we connect as we're
Yeah.
learning? Whether it's
Yeah.
buddy classes, and instead of writing you just like learning how to write a letter, but never giving it to anybody. No, if you're going to learn, the introduction, body, conclusion of a letter, it's
Yeah.
got to go to somebody. It's got to be meaningful. So
Yeah.
those kinds of things.
Yeah. Um, is it always so when you were connecting with all these other groups then, I mean, is it always going to be like sort of project? I know you've been trying to steer away from this. I'm going to come back to it, but project
Yeah.
based, is it always going to be about fulfilling a need of somebody, or are there other purposes that you find in this connections?
Yeah, so no, it's not always a project. We connected with a planetary scientist,
Hmm.
and one of the neat things about that was that we were able to hear from that planetary scientist. So, we're studying
Hmm.
space,
Yeah.
and we were able to hear some of the cutting edge stuff that was happening on Mars. And so she was one of the people that got the images from the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter,
Yeah.
and she, so we were able to get a sense of what it's like to receive those images, maybe the very first time that somebody would
Oh,
see anything from
yeah.
Mars.
Yeah.
And then she mentioned something that I got on a Google Hangout on air, which
Hmm.
was so cool, but it wasn't working, so I had to redo it. But she had mentioned that there's liquid water on Mars today.
Yeah.
I know really there's liquid water really found on Mars, and she was talking about some of the gullies and what the orbiter had found. And so we
Yeah.
got like this current information that not a lot of people know about.
Uh-huh.
And was there a project that was connected with that particular thing? No, there wasn't really anything like that, but it was just part of our learning about Mars. Of course, the students,
Mhm.
we work on digital portfolios. I'm really passionate about that.
Yeah.
Coming back to the digital literacy um, work that I do, and so students will take what they're learning and put it on their
Mhm.
digital portfolio. It might just be about the hangout that we had,
Yeah.
putting an
Yeah.
image of that, and what they've learned and what's meaningful to them. Not necessarily a huge project, but once again, a
Yeah.
connection.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know about you, but I mean, something I'm kind of toying with in my mind right now is just the idea that, I mean, not all learning has to be immediately applicable. Like it's okay every now and then just to just give kids stuff that they can spark on, they can spark to. It's just
Yeah,
like, Mars has got water on it. Isn't that cool? I mean, you can kill that cool fire in the brain just by saying, and there will be a test on this on Friday. It's like, no,
right,
just like,
right.
just take it in.
You know,
Um,
Shane, one of the things that you made me think about that I really want to share
yeah.
is that we talk about, summative assessment. We talk about formative assessment,
Mhm.
and formative assessment, not really grading, but,
Yeah.
assessing in a different way,
Yeah.
giving feedback. But
Yeah.
I'd like to talk about actually something else.
Okay.
And that is that we take the assessment piece away.
Yeah.
And yeah, sure, we can have some summative assessment, definitely some formative assessment. I'm evaluating you. I'm commenting on maybe some spelling. There's no grade here, but I'm saying, hey, you can get better at this and that. But what about just engaging with the students' ideas? And that will go back to those blogs, right? When you do a comment on a student blog,
Mhm.
you can't say, hey, your spelling was kind of lousy. Like that's not what, like
Yeah.
on your blog, Jane, do you want somebody to start commenting on your spelling? Of course not. No, what's the point of it? The point of it is to engage in those ideas.
Yeah.
Think how much the spark will, be extinguished when
Yeah.
we when we do that, the valuing of those ideas and say, well, this is good and this is bad about what you're doing. And so, one of the other things that you made me think about it is just engage with the student ideas and to have a bit of a to and fro. And we're not assessing it or anything like that. We're just, making that connection and, like really honoring the ideas that they have.
Yeah, yeah. We talk about the dominant metaphor of just, sparking ideas and, stoking the fire. And I can't think of any student I've ever really stoked their fire by assessing them, except one.
Right.
I can think of one student.
Okay.
She was nuts. She just loved having her writing critiqued, but I'm pretty sure she's going to be an author now. So
right. Yeah.
But other than that, one student out of these several thousand,
and
that's
what she needed, right?
Yeah,
so that's what she needed, and finding what students need. That's a big part of our job, right?
Yeah, but engagement, that's sort of the more liquid kind of situation where you are just having that conversation back and forth. That's what's going to stoke the fires, not, assessment's necessary and is important, but
yeah, definitely. Yeah. So when I talked about that third piece, I didn't want to say anything, I don't want to take away the ideas around formative assessment and really, saying, hey, it could be better here.
Yeah.
Have you thought about this? That's super crucial. And I know that we do have summative assessment. So though it's really kind of funny because are we saying that the learning sort of ends at this, point?
Yeah.
And I've got some ideas about grading and stuff like that I could definitely share. But I wanted to, to kind of put that in that framework that, yes, we have the assessment, we have the non-assessment interactions as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's important to consider that in context of those other parts, because a lot of times we just say, grading, no, relationship, yes. And it's like, no, they have to got to be together. So I like that. Tell me about digital portfolios. Let's just take a left turn here. Because you're really passionate about that. So how does that figure into your whole matrix of teacherness?
I love it. Teacherness. No, the digital portfolio, when it's used best, in my opinion, is when it's a student's voice to the world. If that can be, looked at, like it's not a place to snapshot, the worksheet and upload it and, have a evaluative comment on it. It's really, it's a place it's a tool to be used to give students a voice. So we use EduBlogs, and we like to have students customize at the very beginning. Like I said, we do the work with students around digital literacy, but also the digital portfolio. So we give students time to customize their portfolio, make it their own. I know that students are using Snapchat. I know that it's really tough for us to say, hey, we've got a platform here that's going to be, amazing. And you can put your Snapchatting aside and just use our platform as your connection. Sometimes I do get some students who get involved in Twitter, and that's really, kind of a cool thing because then I can interact more with them. But but the digital portfolio, if it can be a voice, so if an educator can keep that in mind, then it changes what we do on there, because it's got to be individual. It's got to be, students' wonderings, their ideas. It's great because you can put infographics on there, you can put video on there, and then students can take this away. And so in British Columbia, we're finding that there's a change around students getting into universities and what the requirement is. And so it's really a more rounded look. And so they are saying, okay, well, this number, this is whatever, 98 or 87 or, 73.
Yeah.
Thank you for the number. But what can you do? Can you demonstrate what you're able to do?
Right.
And so I feel that our students at Riverside Secondary in Port Coquitlam, and really in Coquitlam School District as a whole, where we do give students in high school a digital portfolio, that they have a competitive edge, because for 4 years they're working on developing this thing that they can take away on a thumb drive. It's a WordPress platform, and they can do their own, and they can share this with prospective employers and admission officers and share, hey, this is actually what I've done, and all the better if it's something like, wow, this is where we connected with the Dominican Republic, and we worked on these lanterns, and this is where I learned Ohm's law, or, this is
Yeah.
where we connected with Uganda and we,
Yeah.
put together these solar powered computer solutions, or, how impressive is that, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it kind of comes full circle to back what you're talking about, where you get students on day one to Google themselves, right? So if they're
Right.
working on a digital portfolio and they're creating this digital presence that is, I guess, really, excessively positive and constructive, I mean, that's what you want.
Yeah, definitely. And then, and I have them Google me, and I work with Brian Barazal,
Yeah.
my fellow educator, or, so sometimes they're working either with him or with myself. So he has them
Mm.
Google him. And, so it really, it says, hey, look, it's a bit of work here to
Mhm.
make sure that, you, first of all, that you're not doing the goofy things that can really set up a bad digital footprint,
Yeah.
but that you're actually doing some things, including some things online that you're doing in a positive way that could really, give you that competitive edge. Because I mean, even beyond the
Yeah.
digital portfolio, like really Googling a student, that's your portfolio. When, if you're coming in for a job, you're probably going to have somebody just kind of do a little quick
Oh,
search to
yeah.
just see if there's something crazy on there that really it makes you ineligible for that position.
Oh, yeah. News stories about that pretty much every day, So
That's right.
awesome. Awesome. Well, Sean, thank you so much for taking the time out this early morning and chat with me. Really, this has been really enlightening and inspiring.
Well, Shane, it feels like we need to do some more collaboration and some more connection. I love how you reached out to me. I love a fella Canuck to be able to chat like this, and I love your style as well. Free spirited style. Hey, when did we start? When did we start, Shane? Oh, we've already started.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And so, I really appreciate talking to you and being able to share a little bit about what I'm excited about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's been fun. Well, I hope you enjoy the rest of your time in Dubai.
Thank you so much. Take care,
right.
buddy.
Yeah. Oh, Sean, actually, sorry, before we go, shoot.
Oh, yes.
How can people get a hold of you if they want to actually dive into all this stuff?
Right. Okay. So I do a lot on Twitter, just like you, Shane. So my Twitter handle is SR_tutor.
Okay.
So, you can connect with me there. Also, I have a website, connectionsbasedlearning.com, all one word, connectionsbasedlearning.com,
Okay.
S on connections. And that's where you can learn about this approach that looks at, connect, collaborate, cultivate, connections with the community, experts, organizations, classrooms around the world.
Right.
And some projects there, as I've made some connections to Uganda and other, Nigeria and whatnot. There's places where I just say, hey, I can't work together with you because I've got other things on the go, but maybe I could just put your project on my website and somebody can check it out. So, I encourage all the educators that are listening to be able to check out connectionsbasedlearning.com and just kind of play around in there and search around. You might find something where it's like, oh my gosh, maybe I can make a connection with this person. There's people, particularly the connections that I have in Africa, there's people that are just biting at the bit to make a connection. Hey, can you help me with an incubator? Hey, we're working on sanitation. Can you give me a hand, here?
Wow.
So, I would encourage people to check that out and, really to get an idea of the whole process. I've got the book, Connections-Based Learning. You just go to Amazon and you search up Connections with that S, Based Learning, and you'll find it there. Search me up and you'll find it there. You can download it as an ebook, or you can get the paper copy shipped. And, the ebook is quite inexpensive. I really wanted to make it accessible. So it's not a huge money making endeavor. Really, the money just sort of feeds into being able to share more about CBL. So those are a few ways to connect with me.
Beauty. Sounds great.
Awesome. Hey, well, take care, Shane.
Yeah, you too, Sean.
And just I wish for your listeners that they would be inspired to make more connections and look through a connections lens.
I'm sure they will be. All right, you take care, man.
Thanks.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye.
This episode is brought to you by the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. The Girl Tries Life podcast is a fellow Alberta Podcast Network member and is all about showing that women are capable of anything when they have the right tools, strategies, and mindset in place. I'm your host, Victoria Smith, a stress reduction coach who is all about helping you reduce your stress so that you can actually enjoy your daily life. Imagine that. In the Girl Tries Life podcast, we alternate between interviews with incredibly inspiring ladies who break down how they got to where they are, and coaching episodes that leave you with tangible resources and skills for your own life. Life isn't stressless, but we can help you stress less. So I hope that you'll check out the Girl Tries Life podcast. You can find it at girltrieslife.com/podcast. And remember, the most important thing in life is that you try.
And if you want to get in touch, you'd like to be a guest on this show, you can email me at theedpodcast@gmail.com or hit me up on Twitter at theedpodcast. If you'd like to listen to more of Ed, you can head over to the website, theedpodcast.podbean.com, or you can find us on Apple Podcasts. Just search Ed Conversations. Ed is a proud member of the Alberta Podcast Network, powered by ATB. You can find this and all the other member podcasts over at albertapodcastnetwork.com. Ed can also be heard on Voice Ed Radio. It's 24-hour internet broadcasting devoted to the best ideas in education. Just head over to voiced.ca. So, on behalf of myself and Sean, thank you so much for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Bye.